Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinna Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Today's the 27th, is that correct? Or the 28th? 27th. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, the 28th. Okay, got it. On this 27th day of November 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 10, at the bottom of page 602. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam va gunanvitam vimudha nanopashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudha nanopashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. All right, I'm going to wait until our friend arrives because you can't chant. You're looking at the phone, and he'll be able to chant strongly. You ready? 10, bottom of 602. Oh, wait a minute. I'll say, you say. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Okay. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. You want to try it, Tapas? Yeah. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. You want to try it? Over here? Ladies? Go ahead. Oh, you're going to try it. Go ahead. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanam pashyanti pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Chad, you with us?
Utkramantam stitam vapi
Utkramantam stitam vapi
bunjanam vagunanvitam
bunjanam vagunanvitam
vimudhanam pashyanti
vimudhanam pashyanti
pashyanti jnanachakshushaha.
pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Nice. Utkramantam, quitting the body, stitam, situated in the body, va, api, either, bunjanam, enjoying, va, or guna anvitam, under the spell of the modes of material nature. Vimudha, foolish persons, na, never, anupashyanti, can see, pashyanti, can see, jnana chakshushaha, those who have the eyes of knowledge. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Purport. The word jnana chakshushaha is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from the Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances, and he is enjoying under certain circumstances, under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress. So I think that was changed, will be changed. As a result, he's experiencing different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, throughout Bhagavad Gita, periodically, Krishna will describe or mention some of the principles of the transmigration of the soul. And as I mentioned, I think in one of these recent classes, the Bhagavad Gita begins, Krishna's instruction begins with the lessons on the soul, which inevitably also include transmigration. And he begins with this wonderful verse, practically the third verse he speaks to Arjuna in the capacity as the guru, because you know there's a change there that takes place in second chapter. So he says, and this verse is definitely worth memorizing, Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Now the wonderful thing about this verse is that one doesn't need any previous understanding to understand this verse and to get the idea of transmigration. And it really extends from the idea that we're transmigrating in this very body. We've all been through a succession of bodies. Just because they change slowly doesn't mean they don't change radically. How much different are we now in this body than we were when we were 3 years old? A lot different, right? Body has changed a lot, but we're the same person. And the theme goes on like that throughout our life. The body is changing gradually from day to day, and we don't see it until finally, whoa, where did that wrinkle come from? You know, you feel like, what happened to my 18-year-old face? You know? But we're obviously changing. And oftentimes it's a scary prospect, because changing in a physical body means you're actually losing things. You're losing the capacity. Like I remember when I was a kid, forgive me, I always like to use my own life because it comes to mind. I was into physical fitness, you know. Believe it or not, I would lift weights and everything, you know. And push-ups. I got up to 25 push-ups I could do pretty easily, you know. So anyway, recently I also have a certain regimen that I perform to try to keep my health going. The most important thing, which is a very brisk morning walk at 6:30 in the morning as I chant japa, and all the way up Cass, about 2/3 of a mile, and then back. And that's doing wonders. But I wanted to also do a little yoga. I would stand on my head. If there's a device you have, it doesn't have to stand on your head and hurt your neck, but you can stand on the shoulders, but you get the reversal, you know. And then I was trying to say, well, I should also do some push-ups, because as you get older, your muscles tend to, get weaker. And so I tried it, and You know, I used to do 20 push-ups with ease, you know, when I was 18, 19. Now, if I can do 7, you know, and I think, oh, I'm hoping that I can gradually increase. But that's the nature of the material body. It changes, and oftentimes as you get a certain age, it changes for the worse. And eventually it breaks down. Eventually it doesn't work anymore. It's called death. And for most people, that is something they do not want to think about. It just doesn't compute. All right, that's the end of everything, but I don't want to think about that now because it's going to ruin my day or something. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? They're not philosophically inclined. And because they don't have faith in that there's life after death, you can't see that. We can't, it's not something you can see with it, regularly. But as I think I mentioned in this class and other classes, there is some empirical evidence for the fact of transmigration. I mentioned the experiments done by this Dr. Ian Stevenson. He was prominent in the 1970s. Probably people don't know his name now. But he did some research in the field. He went to India and he found some children who claimed to know their past life, and parts of it. And so he went to the other village that they were talking about that he named, and sure enough, it checked out. And there's even, it doesn't have to be an Indian children. Somehow it's more because it's in the culture. But I remember this one thing on YouTube, this one kid was insisting that he was a World War II pilot. And that, do you remember that? And he died in a plane crash, And they found that it was all completely confirmed. And his very straight-laced Methodist parents or whatever they were, they couldn't quite know what to do with it because it wasn't part of the whole Christian thing. But there is empirical evidence, and much more common is this near-death experience where people don't actually die, but they almost die, and they're able to be up near the ceiling and watch the doctors as they're frantically trying to revive someone. And they were able to recount, oh, Dr. So-and-so came in this time, right? Yeah, how did you know? I was up, watching. All of this stuff, but it doesn't really penetrate the mass culture. Generally, people don't have it. So you read about it and you hear about it repeatedly in the Bhagavad Gita because it's an essential understanding, and to have faith in that. And yes, I'm eternal, and I'm going to get another body. So then the next question is, what body am I going to get? How do I act now in this life that I'll get the best next body? That's the thing. And ultimately, of course, we want to end the process of transmigration because that means we end birth, old age, disease, and death. This is a central tenet in the Upanishads, in life. And Krishna mentions in the 13th chapter, there's verses 8 through 11, I think it is. It gives 20 or 21 elements of knowledge. Very important section there. And one of those is unforgettable, if you remember it. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Doshanudarshanam. So it's not that just you're aware of birth, old age, disease, and death, but you're aware of the distress, of the great pain involved with birth, old age, disease, and death. And so having a prospect, which is what all the great acharyas give us, of ending this process by getting liberation or going back to Godhead, as Prabhupada says, which includes liberation, but much more, it should interest us, But the thing is to have faith in it, because if you're just an empiricist, then it doesn't, it's just like some myth, and oh yeah, that's a Hindu thing. I don't know what the heck it is, but let me go about my business. But that becomes a critical factor of your faith of what's reality. That we're living in some kind of organism. Organism is a combination of a soul and a body. Okay. You get all kinds of species of life, 8,400,000. And each one of them is the combination of a soul and a body, an embodied soul. That's what Dehi means. So, but only in the human form do we have enough the intelligence necessary to understand this mysterious philosophy, which you really can't see empirically. And therefore, the necessity is there for the exposure, we call it association with, a realized soul who is actually experiencing the higher levels of this reality moment by moment. and can speak with authority and instill faith. I remember I listen to lectures of Prabhupada every day, and I heard this before, but it just stuck with me now because we're doing Bhagavad Gita every day, that the Bhagavad Gita, you should come away from the reading of the Bhagavad Gita with faith instilled in God, in the process of transmigration, in the process of the marg, the bhakti marga, means the path that leads you to the goal of human life, which is pure love of Godhead, which includes liberation from birth and death. And the wonderful thing is, even in this body, you can feel that sense of liberation. Because what is it that binds us? It's not just the body itself, but all of the attractions and the involvement of the senses with the body, and the pains and the pleasures and the memories and all these different things. But if you're systematically filling your consciousness with Krishna by engaging your senses, your mind, your intelligence, everything in the service of Krishna, that's real yoga, bhakti yoga. That it's not just linking, but it's linking with the sense of service and affection and ultimately love. Then it's very exciting, this prospect of finally using the body for what it's meant for, which is service to Krishna, and finally giving up this gross body and being reinstated in your spiritual body, which doesn't degrade, which is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Now, when I say it, people could say, yeah, right. What does he know about that? And it's true. I haven't really experienced, the higher levels of this yet, and realized it fully. But I have full faith in it because we've experienced so much. As soon as you chant Hare Krishna with a little concentration, immediately you feel the benefits. You feel more peaceful. Some distress or worry you had or anxiety, can be put into perspective. And it's just the fact. It's such a powerful mantra. But by learning more and more about the benefits of the mantra, then you're more and more eager to chant and to be formally accepted into the group of devotees, initiation, because you want to try to make as much progress in this lifetime back to Godhead. And everything else you see in perspective. No matter what it is, even family relationships, they're temporary. It's like the asat. What is that? Everyone with an Indian background probably knows this little phrase, right? Asato ma sadgamaya, mityu ma amitam gamaya, tamasi ma jyotir gamaya, right? Now, Prabhupada, it's two ways of understanding that. Prabhupada would always understand it as an injunction, as an imperative given to you from the Vedas. Don't stay in the darkness, come to the light, or go to the light. Don't stay in this world of birth, of death, come to the eternal life. And don't stay in the world of death, but come to immortality. So, but I understand that grammatically it also exists as a prayer, isn't it? Oh Lord, don't leave me in darkness, but take me to the light. Isn't it like that? So it can serve in both ways. As an injunction, and one feels, oh yes, I don't want to stay in the darkness. How can I go to the light? Okay, here's the process. And at the same time, a prayer to Krishna, please take me from darkness to light, take me from death to immortality, take me from, what is it? Tamasima, Amituma, what is it? Asatoma, take me from the temporary to the eternal. Yeah. So that was the first Sanskrit I learned in Amala Bhakta's, now Amala Bhakta Swami's ashram. I don't know if he used to be more famous than he is now, but he's made wonderful recordings, and he's a sannyasi now. He has a disciple. He lives in LA. He's in his 90s now. But I was part of his ashram, yoga ashram, back in 72, and I learned this mantra there. This is. And it's inspiring. It's like the call from all the sages. They're saying, don't waste your human life. You don't have to die. Go from death to immortality. Go from the darkness to the light. Go from the temporary to the eternal. So the Bhagavad Gita is a practical book of instruction and also information that should implant faith in us that there's this whole other world out there that we belong to. The spiritual world. We have no real direct knowledge of it now, but we have souls and Krishna himself who are speaking to us, informing of this, and giving us a means of how we can become closer to it, even in this lifetime. So now Krishna is saying that, in the verse that we read, Don't, the foolish cannot understand. Don't be foolish. Utkramanta. How a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body enjoys or really experiences under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So this idea of seeing with knowledge, I've often brought up this example, I think this class that most of you were here. These paintings, for instance. Someone wanders into the temple, or they come and visit the temple, they're curious, They don't know anything about anything. So the paintings are attractive because they're well done. They're intriguing. But they have no idea really what's being portrayed until the devotee tells them. Believe it or not, I don't know if you were here at that time. When I first came, for years, we had little signs under them which gave a little explanation, But with the periodic painting of the walls, eventually, the idea is, well, devotees will be around to explain. That'll be even better, right, what's going on. But the thing is, for devotees who are a little familiar with the philosophy, each one of these paintings is, as Prabhupada says, like a window to the spiritual world. Here's Lord Chaitanya dancing in Navadvip with his immediate associates. So you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, it means so much. In other words, you're seeing with knowledge. And that's what Krishna is saying here. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha, with the eyes of knowledge, jnana chakshush, you can truly see the embodied soul. You may not see directly, but you understand, there's evidence of consciousness here, that the person is alive, because the soul is there, you see? And the soul never dies. So whatever we're doing every day, we're forming our consciousness, and that will determine our destiny. This is the whole idea. Hare Krishna, Boo. Thanks for the time you could put in. So here, Krishna doesn't mince any words, I mean, he's giving all of this knowledge, but then he says, the foolish, right? Who's the foolish? Vimudhas, not just the mudhas, but the vimudhas. The viz is very foolish. They cannot see, because they don't have the knowledge, how one leaves the body, gets another body, how he's experiencing so many things, and the modes of nature, all of this is just, is a mystery. He sees people according to their body, the color. There's so much racism. Racism is just gross ignorance. Because if the body is colored a certain way, then I don't want to associate them with, or whatever, like that. I mean, America, let's just be honest. This whole country was founded on the basis of racism and genocide. The whole period, hundreds of years, where we had the slaves, the black slaves, and because they were black, and then clearing of the land of all of the Native Americans. There's probably, I don't know, a few 100,000 left, but they're all in reservations and whatever. So all of that was total ignorance, body consciousness, and exploiting. And so that effect is still present within the ethos of the United States. So we have to deal with that. But with the sword, I love this, the Yanadujyasina. There's a wonderful verse in the second chapter, first canto, one of my favorite parts of the Bhagavatam, where Sutta Goswami is speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya, and they wanted to know, what is that supreme dharma? What is the supreme dharma by which the soul can become truly happy and, and satisfied? And so then, of course, the supreme dharma is bhakti yoga. And he's describing the power of remembrance brought about by hearing, because the Bhagavatam is meant for hearing and meant for reawakening our devotional life. So the hearing begins, of course, hearing the holy name. But he talks about developing the sword of remembrance, Yadanudhyasina yukta, karma grunti nabandhanam. With that sword of remembrance of Krishna, one can cut his karma, is that it slice it into bits and it's gone. Yadanudhyasina yukta, karma grunti nabandhanam, chindanti kovidastasya, kona kuya kataratim. Said one can become free from the bonds of his good and bad karma. Good meaning you'll get a better material life. We don't want any karma. We don't want V-karma. V-karma is sinful activity against the Vedas. Then you lose the human form of life. But we don't even want good karma, which will get us a place in heaven or whatever, We want a-karma, which means you're acting, but you're acting only for Krishna, therefore there's no reaction, good or bad. so-called good or so-called bad. The best reaction was to free yourself of the bonds of karma so that you're headed back to Godhead. Karma, Rishabdev, when he speaks, this is the definitive word. Nunam pramakta, what is it? Kurade. Nunam pramakta kurade vikarma yadindriya pritaya apanoti nasadamanya yata apanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeha. There's so much in this one verse. Nuna means for sure, certainly. Those who are simply performing vicious acts, sin, vikarma, against the rules of the Vedas, even to take you to heaven, forget it, it's just whatever. Selfish acts. Nunam akurata vikarma, they're mad, completely mad, because yadindriya priti, in order to please the senses. Indriya priti is literally sense gratification. Indriya priti apanod. Nasaramanya, he said it's not very good, not a good idea. Because yata atmanoyam, the soul, by this activity, atmanoyam, asan api kleshada asadeha, is sure to get another body, which is asat, temporary, but also gives so much klesha, so much misery. So you're ensuring so much suffering. Just by acting, most people act. I don't care, let's get a nice, steak. We go out for a steakhouse for, and perform vicious activities that are ensuring you so much suffering. So then he gives another lesson. This is a wonderful little 3-verse lesson in Rishabdev. That's very important. So then he gives a general principle. Padavabhastava bodha jato yavan jigyasa sa atma tattvam yavat kriyas tavadidamano by karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. Now this verse is very pertinent to what we're discussing here, the process of transmigration. So what he's saying, and Prabhupada explained this so wonderfully in his lectures. Parabhavas here means defeat. Parabhavas tavad, abodha jato. So these wonderful pairs in Sanskrit. There's yata tata, which is how you draw an analogy. Dehinosmin yata dehe, komaram yovanam tada. Tata dehantara prapti. Just as in this body you transmigrate from childhood to boyhood, adolescence, and similarly, you get another body after death. You see, the sober are not bewildered by such a change. So you also have yavat tavat. This is another pair, which means usually it's negative. As long as you don't do this, yavat, you won't get that tavat. So in this verse, now it doesn't matter the order, the tavat can come first. So it says, padavabhas tavat, abodha jato, yavan nijigyata, yavat again, yavat jigyata sa atma tattvam. So notice that word jigyasata is a key word. Atato brahma jigyasa. This is the very first sutra of the Vedanta Sutra. What we're inquisitive about, what we want to investigate, this is where our consciousness goes, and eventually it forms our destiny. So the Vedanta Sutra says you should be inquisitive into Brahman, the absolute truth, which, as it says in the next sutra, where everything came from. We soon learn that absolute truth is Krishna. It's a person. It's not just Brahman. It's not impersonal Brahman. So that's the Vedanta Sutra. But here he's saying, as long as one does not inquire into the truth of the soul, Parabhavas tavad abodha jato. The Parabhavas is born of ignorance, gross ignorance. Parabhavas tavad abodha jata literally means born of ignorance. So that long you will remain suffering birth and death, defeat in your tava bodha jato. Yavan, as long as you do not inquire into the truth of the soul. Yavat kriyas tavad idam parabhavas tavad bodha jato yavan nadjigyatasa atma tattvam. The truth of the individual soul and the supreme soul. You see, and then he has another pair. Yavat kriyas tavididam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. As long as yavat kriyas, you perform karmic activity, fruit of activity, yavat kriyas, that long, tavad, yavat kriyas tavididam manovai, your mind will remain karmatmakam, saturated with all these fruit of ideas. How can I enjoy here? How can I get away from that pain? All positive, negative, Yavat kriyas tavadidam manovai karmatmakam. And that your mind is then described as karmatmakam, filled with all these karmic ideas. Yena, by which, yena is an instrumental. Yena sharira bandha. You remain bound up to a physical body, life after life. So then, and what's the way out? They don't leave us hanging. Third verse. And here, this is a wonderful verse. He says, Evam mana karma vasham payunkte. Thus the mind, saturated with karmic desires, impels you to work. Your mind is, causing us, forcing us to work. Evam mana karma vasham payunkte avidyayatman. Ignorance. Avidyayatman ubadiyamani. Full of ignorance. So this is the situation of most of the souls. But then he gives the way out. He gives the solution. Pritir, again yavatavat. Pritir nayavan mai vasudeve namuchate dehi yogena tavat. Ends with tavat. So as long as you don't have love for me, Vasudev. This is Vishaddev revealing himself to be an incarnation of Vasudev, Krishna. Pritir nayavan mai vasudeve namuchate dehi yogena tavat. As long as you don't have love for me, Vasudev, you will not be able to become free from bondage to a physical body, which means suffering. So a very wonderful lesson there. I don't have the exact verses, but it's in the fifth. It's still in the fifth chapter. Fifth chapter of the fifth canto. You can look it up near the beginning there. So that's what Krishna is saying here. The Vimudas, those who don't have the knowledge, who have not inquired into the truth of the soul and the Supreme Soul, then they remain, within the modes of nature, and it's tragic. So we don't want to be there. We want to get that knowledge and act on it. So that we can see through the eyes of knowledge. We're meant to be able to, as we go through, our daily activity, to see through the eyes of the Bhagavad Gita. Just like it's very fascinating. The sixth chapter is all about this Ashtanga yoga. Yoga that's well known popularly. Meditative yoga, how to sit and everything. Krishna talks about that. And he even says, he gives some verses, I think in 20, 21 and on, about the wonderful experience of those who succeed in this yoga. And they experience the highest pleasures through transcendental senses, and having achieved it, they never want to leave it, like that. But ultimately, that's there for the bhakti yogis. Most of the yogis, at most, they're meditating on Vishnu within, which is fine. They can go to, Vaikuntha Loka like that. But oftentimes they'll get, wrapped up in the cities that you develop. That's the problem. Those cities can be so you can travel from place to place and to the universe. You can walk on water. There's some understanding that this is what Jesus did. He went to India, during those years. It was like 20 years. Yeah. And he learned yoga, and then, he was able to use it. And then finally Arjuna said, I can't do this. I'm a warrior, you want me to sit? I can't sit like that. The mind is so powerful. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balabhadradham tasyaham niguham mane vairi vasadaskaram. We just had these, I'm sure you're aware of these terrific hurricanes we had in Miami just a month or two ago. They're really powerful. They're destructive. So much so, and they came one after another like that, that the real estate market in Florida is suddenly crashing. People don't want to buy homes anymore. They saw what happened. It was such devastation. The Helena and the other one, Morton, or whatever his name is. So Arjuna says, I can't control my mind. It's more powerful than a hurricane. Vaya vivachaduskadam. Chantalam is going here and there. Mana Krishna pramati, very powerful. Balavad dridham. Tasyaham nigraham mane vaya vivachaduskadam. So Krishna said, don't worry, even if you don't make it the first time, you get born again in a wealthy family, a pious family, or even a yogi family, so you can still... Arjuna's not really very... So then at the end, Krishna, he encourages Arjuna at the end of the chapter. Yogi nama bisarvesham, madgaten antaratmana, shuddhavan bhajate yomam, same yuktatamo mataha. So my opinion is, of course Krishna's opinion is final, is that the best yogi is one who's always thinking of me within his heart and is worshiping me with great faith and love, And that's Arjuna. He's already thinking of Krishna all the time. He's a good, so you can just hear him, big relief that there's still hope. And then the very next verse, Krishna then begins chapter 7. Now Prabhupada told us that the middle 6 chapters are really the essence of the Gita. So in the 7th chapter, now Krishna is teaching us how, very easily, comparatively, much more easy than Ashtanga Yoga, we can come to see him everywhere. And so he said, he says, Maya Sakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Manashayam. Asakta means liking, that'll become attracted. So this is. I'm going to teach you how you can naturally have the mind become attracted to me. Maya Asakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Manashaya, by taking shelter of me or taking shelter of someone who's taking shelter of me. Prabhupada explains that. Asangshayam samagramamita gyasati tachunu. Asangshayam samagrama. There'll be no doubt, you'll have no doubt that you can do this process. And just hear me. Now hear about it. Tachinu. So Krishna then describes in a few verses, he says, first is very rare, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kashya, even many, out of many human beings, only 1 or 2 will strive for perfection, and out of all those who strive, just a few will actually achieve it. But don't worry, Arjun, you're one of the selected, and we can also be one. So then before long, he starts describing his energies, his external energies. He's describing what's going on. Bhumar, Apo, Anano, Vayo. There's these 8 material energies, from gross to subtle: earth, water, fire, air, ether, which is space, subtle space, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are all inanimate. This is the stuff that everything is made of in this material world. And then he said, these are my external, but there's a higher energy. That besides these lower energy, there is this higher energy, which is all the souls who are sustaining the different bodies and are living, in this material world. So then he says, now here's how you can see me, very famous verses. Rasoham apsukonteya prabhashmi shashishuryayo pranabhaksava vedeshu shabda ke parusham nashu. So he's going through all the senses. He begins with the sense of sight. The taste. Rasoham apsukonteya, by drinking water. So who doesn't drink water, once or twice a day, So whenever you drink water, you can say, oh, if I would just remember that verse, this is Krishna. The tongue I'm tasting with, the water, it's all Krishna's energy. So therefore Krishna is here. He said, Rasoham. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. When don't you see the sun and the moon, So the point is, you can, now this is the key, through the eyes of knowledge. Jnana Chakshusha. We have knowledge. Krishna said that. Now, whenever I drink water, whenever the sun comes up, I think of Krishna. And if you keep going through there's always one of these verses you're experiencing. Punyo Gandha, this fragrances. He goes through all of the senses like that. And he even says, sex life that's not against my dharmic principles. So the daily life that we just lead can suddenly be, as Prabhupada used, he would always say, Krishnaized. They changed it to Krishnaized, but I don't like that. Krishnaized is like the word. So you Krishnaize your whole life. Things you've been doing all the time and experiencing suddenly become transcendental experience because you remember, Krishna has provided all of the facilities by which I'm experiencing the sunlight, and he is the sunlight himself. So this is Krishna. So that 7th chapter is so important. And finally, he talks about the modes of nature. Daiviyesha gunamahi mamamaya dorotteya mamaviye papadyante maya metang tarantite. That this material world, composed of the modes of nature, is my nature. It's come from me. Therefore, it's divine. Gunamahi mamamaya. But it's very, very difficult to cross over on your own. Dorotteya. But one who surrenders to me can easily cross beyond it. And Prabhupada talks in the purport how guna can mean rope. So if you're tied tightly to a chair, you can't get out, But if someone comes and just comes with a little knife or something and it cuts the rope, then you can come. So that's like compared to the spiritual master. Giving the knowledge. Again, the sword of remembrance, this knowledge, we can transcendentalize our life. So we want to see with the eyes of knowledge, and then we can become free from the gunas, the modes of nature. And he talks about seeing even more in the next verse. Okay, we can do one more. If there's no discussion on this verse. So just remember what the word yatanto means. Striving, right? Endeavoring. Yatanto yoginas chayanam. Okay. Yatanto yoginas chayanam. Pashyantyatman yavastitam. yatanto prakritatmano nainam pashyantya chetasaha. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport: there are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yoginaha is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis, and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called yatanto prakritatmana. Even though they are endeavoring in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the bhakti yogis, those engaged in pure devotional service and Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place. So this is, again, he's talking about the eyes of knowledge. To see, this is so important. And it has to be practiced every day, because the nature of the material world, which is full of the modes, the modes of nature, is to cover this knowledge. Because we have so many things to do just to keep the body and soul together, and it's easy to be distracted. So that's why Prabhupada set up these temples, and of course the books are essential, but the regularity of practicing and especially chanting the holy name. By that regular chanting in the morning, our interest in Krishna consciousness is always kept fresh, and you want to try to advance. And so that gives you this eyes of knowledge, so that you're interested in seeing the world through the eyes of the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and so forth. Okay, so now he's going to, he does a little different, he changes gears now, and he's going to talk about how he's present everywhere and all of these different things. And it's the same idea that I mentioned in the 7th chapter, how things that we ordinarily experience, even like digestion. Oh, I am the fire of digestion, he mentions there. And again, the splendor of the sun, he reiterates that. So this is the same idea, giving us ways to see him everywhere. All right, text 12. Yadaditikatam tejo jagadbhasiyate kilam yachandamasi yachagno tattejo bindimamakam. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Purport: the unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place. But one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity, or fire, are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. From this verse we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole universe. There are different universes and there are different suns, moons, and planets also, but in each universe there's only one sun. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.21, the moon is one of the stars, nakshatrana mahangshashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, or the rising of the sun, with the rising of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. Yeah, I'm going to have to fix that. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff. They set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Without His mercy, there cannot be sun. Without His mercy, there cannot be moon. And without His mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of the sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. So, Krishna is trying his best to help us be Krishna conscious in a very practical way. And all of this is meant to infuse faith in us, in the reality of Krishna, the reality of the transmigration of the soul. It really doesn't make any sense that for there not to be transmigration. Just to think, for a minute, does it make sense that we have this one shot, that this is it, all we have? What about, if you have an accident? Because if you don't think there's life after death, you don't think there's life before birth. So why should one child be born in a miserable condition and another be born with his, silver spoon in his mouth, so to speak? It's just chance. Chance doesn't explain anything. Chance means I don't know why. So I'll go explain it. But everything, it gives meaning to everything. In other words, everything that happens in our life is due to our karma or due to Krishna's mercy or whatever. There's a reason behind it. And when you can see, the Lord's energy is working everywhere. It's not very difficult. If wind is blowing, well, who's blowing it? There's a demigod who's working under Krishna's, Vayu, who's working under Krishna's instruction, and therefore the wind is blowing strong or fast, or it's coming from the ocean, it's coming from here or whatever. So in this way, in our everyday life, we can feel the presence of Krishna's intelligence and His guidance. And especially when we chant the holy name, we see the deity, we read the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is personally speaking to us, encouraging us, practice this easy yoga system and come back to me. And we feel that, like he says at the end of the 5th chapter, Bhoktaram yagitapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam gyata mam shantam richati. The peace formula, Prabhupada's famous peace formula. That I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities. And I am the Lord of all worlds. Sarva loka maheshwaram. But most important for us, suridam sarva bhutanam. I am the best friend of every living entity. And a suri, that means someone who's always ready to help you, who never gets tired of it. Suridam. And if one can understand this, then he can attain peace. And the peace is a dynamic peace. It's not just, okay, now I can take rest. No. It means that now I can live with the confidence that when I serve Krishna, I think of Krishna, and I glorify Krishna, that He's hearing me, He's appreciating, and He's guiding me, and that's why I feel so blissful. So it's a dynamic process, and Krishna keeps telling us again in the different parts of these chapters how He's everywhere, He's doing everything, He's within our hearts. And the verse coming up, 15:15, is perhaps the most famous verse in this chapter. I am in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. From me come knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. The Vedas are all meant to. I am the compiler of the Vedanta. I am the knower of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas as well. So this is such an important, and it works because He's our best friend. The problem we had the scandal where it was the NSA. I think it was they're spying on everything. They're reading all of our text messages, and they're not supposed to do that. How do I know they have my best interests at heart? This is the big government. Maybe they're going to exploit me. But Krishna knows everything. But He's our best friend. If He weren't our best friend, it would be very. And he wants nothing but for us to get rid of our connection with this material world, come back to the spiritual world. And he comes himself. He stays with us in our heart. He speaks Bhagavad Gita. So we should take advantage of all of these things that Prabhupada has made available. All right, I'm sorry I went on too long, but I have time for maybe one quick poem. Is that okay? All right. So. All right. So a couple of verses from this Madhurashtaka is always... So, alas, what sorrow, what pain, alas, what sorrow, what great pain, the worst calamity for people to forget the holy name of Sri Hari. Although the name's a priceless gem, mere broken glass they see. The holy name of Sri Hari is surely all that be. But on the positive side, this one is definitely most, it sticks in my mind. It says, Nikshraseena hivishraso kadarudho bhavishyati kirtane matabalyad harinamaiva kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Sri Hari is surely all that be. And you can see how merciful Krishna is. Anytime we want, we can chant Hare Krishna. And realize, oh, this is Krishna himself. I'm getting Krishna's association. The more that you hear the sound very, very carefully, the more that it'll impinge, impact your consciousness, attract, all attractive. All right, we better get ready for kirtan. I always go over time now. So we'll meet again next week, if locally and remotely. We had Bhakta Chad. He gets better sound than I do from this mic. He's really coming too strong. All right, so we will text 13, I believe. Yes, 13. And I don't know what happened to Mahima. Does anyone know? Did she leave town or something? Because she used... She was there. Okay, all right. Because she's pretty religious coming. Huh? Yeah, online. So did you send that letter? Okay, they might have got the class.